Thanks a lot for coming today. This seminar today will be a bit different to the ones I usually do, because today I'm also going to talk about useful things in the creative field, not just tutorials and techniques. Usually I show lots of useful techniques, but today I would like to show some insights into the industry. Because I've been working in lots of different fields. I've been doing photo retouch, digital art, graphic design mainly, and these are quite distinct. And what I found is that each area has its own specific requirements and things you might need to know before you actually decide to do these things. And I would like to talk about these three topics, starting with graphic design as probably the biggest industry, and then I will move on to digital art. And after the break, I'm going to talk about the third topic, photo retouch. Now, each area is really big, and it's really difficult to talk about all this in one day, in one presentation. So I'm going to focus on the most important things, which I found useful working for these clients. So this presentation is for everyone who wants to work in the creative field or already working in the creative field, but want to know about more about the opportunities you have. So let's start first with graphic design. And I would like to just read up a short paragraph from the career guide that you see at the bottom. Graphic design is a creative process that combines art and technology to communicate ideas. The designer works with a variety of communication tools in order to convey a message from a client to a particular audience. The main tools are image and typography. So what is graphic design? Now we roughly understand from this, but there are so many areas of graphic design. These are the most distinctive ones that we can talk about. And for each of them, it's true that the main tools that you work with are typography and imagery. So this is always what you combine. And I will talk about, in general, in the creative field, things like, do I need to be creative to work in this industry and stuff like that? So I will talk about that later. But first now, just concentrate on graphic design. So logo design. Logo design in itself is a career. There are creative professionals who concentrate and work only on logos for like their whole life. So like 50 years, only on logos. And it's a beautiful part of graphic design, but it is very difficult. To be able to be good in logo design, you have to understand the principles, because logo design is like the essence of graphic design. Logos and icons are somewhere between imagery and typography. It's somewhere there on the borderline. So it's not really typography, it's not really imagery, it's somewhere between the two. So with logo design, you have to be really good. But as soon as you are good with logo design, you can design logos for companies, because a company needs a logo. But a company has also brands, and brands also need logos. Then product lines needs also logos, and separate products also sometimes needs logos. So there's so many things that the companies need to create logos for. And it's interesting about design-related topics in the internet. The most commonly searched area is logo design. So in Google, if you look for design searches, logo design is the most searched for. So it's a really big area, and I will talk about and show examples of this a bit later on, or actually I can show you a couple of examples now. So whenever you start working on logo design, it's always, there's a name usually which comes from the company. It can be a brand, it can be an application in this case, it's a mobile application, and with that only as your asset, the name, you need to come up with an idea to not only present that name, but also to deliver the message. If you remember, that's what we need to know, that's what we need to do with graphic design, we need to communicate. So you need to somehow show, apart from the name, somehow show what does this relate to. And in this case, it's an application, a mobile application, which helps you to post your social media to use all your social media from one source. And these were the initial sketches. I just wanted to show you that usually this is how the logo design starts. We usually do in black and white just to make sure that the color doesn't get in the way. Then there's another example for another company, lots of different ideas. Again, the initial stage when we only have the name and we need to come up with a style. The more simple ones on the bottom left, more modern type and treatment, and then the a bit more traditional options on the top as well. Then I would like to show you another interesting one. This is just an example of once you have a logo, let's say that logo on the left, you also have to work with that logo on the way, because that logo will be the essence of the whole brand. So that the elements that you use in the logo will reappear in lots of different versions. And it's a really interesting question that usually people ask me, that what is the best logo? Is it good if I make it complicated and very detailed, or is it good if I keep it simple? What do you think is better for logo design? Excellent. Yes, keep it simple. Less is more. In most cases in graphic design, that's true. But in logo design, it is really important. And it has to work from a distance, but it has to also work in versions like this, when it has to be eye-catching, and it has to, again, deliver other meaning as well to the logo itself. So logo design is complex, but it's a really interesting topic. And if you are interested in logo design, I highly recommend to check out Dribbble.com. Dribbble, it has 3 B's, Dribbble.com. That website is mainly works with logos, so designers share their work there, and you can see actually only registered designers, so not everyone can post their work there, only registered designers. Unfortunately, I think we don't have internet here, or do we have internet? I don't think we have internet here. So anyway, Dribbble.com is a really good website. So if you are interested in logo design, you should check that out. Okay, let's get back to the next one. Brand identity, it comes from logo design, but what you can see here on the right is basically once you have a logo, let's say this is our logo, you also have to use it on several products and stationaries. So again, the applications of the logo. It can appear on the side of an airplane if it's airlines, for example. But it has to also work on the stationaries like paper and business card. So you have to also be able to use the logo, not just design it, if you work in brand identity. User interface design is another interesting one. It's basically software, apps, and icon design, which I would say is user interface design. It's again another big area. I don't really want to go into that topic. Poster design is another interesting one, which I have some examples for. Now, poster design is again a very good example of using type and imagery together. When again you need to show these elements together, how they work together. And I'll show you another example as well, where we have, again, a photograph which we start from, and then we use the type together. And that will help us to communicate what we want. Again, another example of the same theme. These, by the way, are for academy class. I think you can see these posters in the classes. So if you come for a course, you can see these in printed version. Then I would like to also just show you another quick example, and I'm going to open up this in Photoshop. By the way, you can see I'm using Photoshop CS6 beta version. It's out there, so if you want to give it a try, you can download it. Just search for Photoshop CS6 beta. And it has some really cool new features, but I don't have time for that to show it to you now. I would like to show you, though, that little simple example what we can see here. So I'm going to show you the original photograph, which is this, and a good example of graphic design, how we work together with text and the image. Of course, if you just simply put the text here, let me just turn on the text, if I can find it, yeah. If we just simply place the text on the image, it won't work. Obviously, we can always make this bigger, and we can always make it more legible, but to be able to make this look like a poster, you somehow have to combine these elements, give the impression that it's one. In this case, again, as I said, it's a quite simple example, but it shows really well how graphic design works. In this case, what I did is, first of all, I used adjustment layers to get the attention or the focus on this soldier here by just simply darkening the background, adding a bit more contrast, and using a black and white adjustment layer to turn everything black and white apart from the soldier. Okay, so once you have that, then you can think how to combine the text into the image, because it's still not really good here on the left. We can't really see the text. So what I decided to do is that use a banner, some sort of banner on top of this, and I added this white outline as well. And as you can still see, it's getting there, but it's still not the best, because still it looks very two-dimensional. It looks like, okay, we just have the image, and then on top of that we place the text with the banner. It's legible, but it's still not really convincing. So what I did is a very simple trick. I just simply made a selection of the soldier. As you can see, it's not even accurate. It's just a very simple selection. And with that, I use that selection as a mask for the banner. And immediately, as soon as we place the banner, it's obviously it's not behind the character, because we are working with a photograph, but just to give the impression that the banner is behind the character, we already have a depth. We already have these elements, the image and the type, working together. So you always need to look for these relationships between the type and the design. And it is really, really important. I'm working for the company called Ryzen. I've been working for them for a year, and we work for really big companies like Disney, Cartoon Network, and mainly American entertainment companies. So I usually, like today, I was working on Cars. And it's the brand, Cars brand, which always comes out. We work for licensing, and we always have to, for each season, we always have to come up with new ideas with the same characters. And when I work with, unfortunately, I can't show you those because we always work 2 years ahead. But the designs we do for these projects, again, very simple. We have the character like Lightning McQueen from the film, and then we have a phrase like speed or something, ultimate speed, and we have to put these together in some way. Just the same as here, we have to make sure that there's a relationship between the two elements. So it's not just standing next to each other, it has some kind of relationship between them. Okay, so try to remember this. Again, if I just jump back to this, again you see that there's some kind of relationship between the text and the background. It's not as good example as the other one. Or here again, is the perspective and the lighting which helps the two to connect to each other. In this case, I used a type, a 3D type again, and the background, I can open this up as well just to show you how this builds up. Again, this could be like a poster design. And posters are used for movies, advertisements, events, and it's very similar like to when you design covers for DVDs, books, and games. So it's all very similar, and most of the times you work with the same things, type and imagery. So in this case, again, we have the original photograph. Okay. By the way, useful keyboard shortcut, Alt-click on the eye in Photoshop turns off all layers apart from the one that you click on. Okay. So for example, if I want to see the extras, I can just see those. If I want to see only, let's say, the text, Alt-click on the eye icon here. So this is the eye icon. I Alt-click on it, and it turns off everything else and just shows that one specific layer. And when you Alt-click again, or Option-click on Mac, it turns it back on all the other layers. So I just see the original photograph, and then I have the text which I wanted to place here. Let me just show you the text, but I'm going to turn off all the elements, and I just show you with the original 3D text that I used. Obviously, we have to again make some kind of relationship between the two elements, and in this case what I did is I created these layers, created the effect of shadow first of all, and then I made it look 3D, and then I used the same texture on it, as you can see, the same texture and some adjustment layers. I think I've turned on something which we don't need. Yeah, that one. So with the texture, the same texture that we have in the background, it already has the impression that it was actually there on the wall. And after that, I started creating these other elements, which makes it more interesting. So I created all these decorational elements. So it started from, again, a flat graphic, and then it's turned into three-dimensional shapes. And then the only thing left is to, again, just to give a bit more atmosphere to the image. I added these colors, and then a couple of extras, like I worked a bit on the sunglasses to match the colors on there, and also added this little lizard here on the left. Okay, so just to see how something like this builds up from scratch. Again, from the original photograph to the finished design. Okay, so there's so many ways to work with text and images together. These are just a couple of examples to show you. Okay, another example again, the image which I had in the background, and mainly I used the light and colors to make it look like these letters floating in space. Okay, let me go back to here. Layout design is magazines, books, brochures, catalogs. For layout design, if you want to work in layout design, you have to also be able to use InDesign. Now, InDesign is another Adobe application which is very similar actually to Photoshop, and it's quite easy to learn. Once you know Photoshop, to learn InDesign, it's probably will take you a couple of weeks to get used to. And obviously, you won't be a professional in InDesign, but you can always just concentrate on the things that you need. For example, for magazines, I just want to show you a quick example of this. I think it's opening already. Yeah. You need to wait a bit for that. I work on magazines as well, and with magazines, it's a really you can really enjoy working with magazines, mainly because of the images that you usually get. So, for example, I work on a magazine called Nature Photo Magazine, and I'm working together with famous nature photographers, and they always send me their amazing photographs, and I get the copy, and what I need to do is to put these together. So once again, the same thing as with poster design, it's just a bit different format. You have several pages and spreads to work with, but basically it's the same idea behind magazines as well. Let me jump to InDesign. And again, because we don't have internet, unfortunately I can't show you that Nature Photo Magazine, but just check out, if you're interested in nature photography, naturephotomagazine.com. That's the website, and it's completely free and it's available online, so you can check out the online version of the magazine. In InDesign, again, we can work with layers, colors, text, and images, and combine them together in different ways. And you can really use the same principles that you have in Photoshop, but in this case, it's more pages, of course. And this is just as an example. Let me just close this here. Of using the same images and how would it work in a magazine, and how to combine text and use together with images. But obviously, it's an endless opportunity again in InDesign how to work with images and text together. So I don't want to really spend more time. I just wanted to show you these couple of examples. And I want to go back to this presentation because I would like to mainly talk about things that you will need. If you want to do graphic designs, what do you need for that? So, main skills needed: typography, as we can see, image manipulation, composition skills, and working with colors. Now, for typography, you really need to have a strong understanding of the rules. This can come with the experience that you have throughout the years, but it's always better to learn about typography. It's not a really difficult topic. There's a couple of principles which you need to learn. For example, let me just show you a quick example. If we have a text, let me open up Photoshop. So let's just say we have a text. I'm going to use a font called Tryon Pro, which is a standard font which comes with Adobe. And I'm going to type in, let's say, I'm going to type in World War, which is a nice subject. And maybe make this bigger. Okay. So if this would be on a cover of a book, a graphic designer would immediately spot a problem with this. Even though we use the default font, and there's nothing wrong with this font, it's a professional font made by Adobe, but still, what do you think is the problem with this text? The R? Yes, the kerning, the R and the A is too close. The kerning is a simple principle which is quite simple to understand. If I make a copy of this text, okay, and I use the type tool and click between, let's say, the W and the A, let's say I want to use the A and R as the default distance between the characters. I'm going to make the W and the A a bit closer. Keyboard shortcut, Option, left and right arrows on the keyboard will move the characters closer or further away from each other. This is a fast way to edit the kerning in text. And you will see why I'm doing this. So once I did that, that's fine. I want to move this closer as well, and probably this closer as well a bit. And this is just a very quick adjustment, but you will already see the improvement in the text. So these little changes can make your type better. And that's why I said to learn the principles in typography is quite important, because these things others will, in the creative field, will easily spot in your work if you don't know about it. And they might just tell you, your kerning is not right, so it's good to prepare and understand what they mean. So this is definitely, typography and work with type is one of the main skills that you need in graphic design. The other one is image manipulation, which is effects and treatment. Now for that, again, I have a good example. I have actually this example from the company where I work. I would like to show you this PDF. We created a brand guide for Electronic Arts for Need for Speed, the brand Need for Speed. And I would like to just show this in full screen. This is what we call a mood board, an inspiration for the client, just to see the style that we are going to use for the whole brand. And I think that's like an example of the design on a badge. This is, we call it badges, where we, again, the same principle, image and type working together. But as you can see, we have obviously typography, which is really important in these designs. So you always work with type, different ways of using the type. And then you also have the effects on the image. It's not just a simple photograph. It has lots of effects on it, and that's what we call treatment. You always have to be able to do some kind of treatment, and mainly in this case, because it's going to be used for print, it has to also look good on T-shirts or posters or anything like that. Another example, another badge, and again another one, combining simple elements and creating the relationship between these elements. And then to see how it works, how it will work on products, the same elements that you've seen before. Okay, so this is just an example. And then another mood board. So we saw the first mood board and used and its applications. Then here is another mood board with a different style. This is more like the street style, the graffiti and a bit more grungy look. And then, again, a badge of that treatment, the same badge with a different treatment, again another one, and then again used on different applications. Okay, so I just wanted to show this. This is licensing design, by the way. If we just go back to the main areas, that was licensing design. So image manipulation, treating the photograph is also a really important skill to have. Now, you might feel a bit intimidated about seeing these images and think about, okay, I'm not sure what styles and effects to use when I have a photograph. There's so many ways to treat the images. You can use layer styles, you can use filters in Photoshop, you can use blend modes, combining like textures on top of images. And all these things are quite simple to learn. It's always more important to understand the brand and to know what is the best style to use for the brand. As soon as you know that, you can find images on the internet. There's probably an example for every different ways of showing images, because there's so many great designs out there already. So you can definitely find good examples, and those can inspire you and help you to define the treatment that you need to do for your images. Okay, so you can always learn the techniques, but it's more important to know what treatment to use in which case. Okay, but that again comes with research and creating these mood boards that you saw already. Composition is really essential. It's something that you need to again learn and practice. For example, let me just go back to these here, and I open up another example. This is another big brand that we are working on constantly. How many of you know about Hot Wheels, the toys? Okay, most of you know about it. This team Hot Wheels is an interesting idea. They already started doing this. So basically, they have 4 real drivers. The Hot Wheels are these little cars like Matchbox, and what they came up with a new idea is this Team Hot Wheels, where we have these drivers, real drivers, and they do amazing stunts, and it just makes a whole lifestyle brand out of the actual toy brand. In this case, again, the composition is quite complex, because we have the drivers, we have the logo, we have the vehicles that they ride, the motorbike, the rally car or drift car, rally car, and the Baja truck. And then we also have these elements and treatments in the background. We even have a pattern there. So how to put all these together is really essential. You might get all these elements ready, so you might not need to design them, but you definitely need to know how to put them together, and that's composition. Most of the times, or there's lots of examples, lots of times when I just have all the elements like icons, text, images, so I have everything, the building blocks for my designs. I just need to put them together, but obviously that's a difficult part still. So even though you have the building blocks, you still need to know how to put these together to make it work. Okay, so composition is really important in graphic design. Then what was the last one? It's working with colors. Colors are essential, again, because colors can help us to give contrast to our designs, and also to colors can help us to differentiate meaning between elements. Let me just try to find you an example for that. So in this case, what do you think is the advantage of working with colors, or what does the color mean in this case? Let me help you. For example, very simple, just using the same color on the text and the soldier already helps to have the story to combine, or to have a repeated element in our design. That's already really simple. And also this red color, it's just good for this whole era, this Roman times. So color, and I can show you lots of other examples, but I don't really have more time to talk about this topic. So just remember that color is important, and color in the sense that you need to know which colors to choose, how to build up harmony between the colors in your design, but also you need to know about the technical issues with colors, like difference between RGB and CMYK. So these are also topics that you should look into. If you want to work in graphic design, remember these 4 main areas, the skills that you need, but then there are additional useful skills which you can use in graphic design. If you are good in illustration and your hand drawing is good, that will help you, but it's not necessary. You can be a really good graphic designer without any hand drawing ability. So that's for sure. You won't be able to say the same for digital art, but for graphic design, this is true. Like as you can see, I'm using a tablet, which is cool because I like to draw, and I always found easier to work with a tablet than a mouse. But in the company where I work, I am the only one using a tablet, and everyone else works with mouse or mice. So it's not necessary, the hand drawing skill. But if you have it, it will help you in specific cases. Photography, definitely. What do you think photography will help you in graphic design if you are good in photography? Composition, exactly, and colors maybe as well, but mainly composition. If you know about print production, that will definitely help you understand the technical issues with print. 3D modeling and lighting will help you, like if you know 4D, for Cinema 4D or 3D Studio Max, that can help you to create elements for your design, even from a simple geometric shape to a 3-dimensional text, even though in Photoshop CS5 and especially now in CS6, there's so many options to create 3-dimensional shapes. It's almost like a little modeling application now in Photoshop, but still, if you know the other applications, they can help you, but it's again not necessary to have. And if you know about like HTML, CSS, JavaScript and stuff like that, you can work more towards web design, which is again another part of graphic design. Okay, so we are almost done with graphic design. Mainly used areas and tools in Photoshop. So you also might know that Photoshop is a massive application. It has so many features, and it is always true that if you work in a specific field, then you will probably use, like in graphic design, you will probably use like 20% of the features in Photoshop. Again, if you work in digital art, you will probably use even less, like 10% of the tools in Photoshop. For photo retouch, you might only use like 5% of Photoshop's abilities. So, but it's not a bad thing. You will be still, if you learn those tools well, you can be a really professional in the field. You don't have to know all the other features. You need to focus and learn these features first, and then you can extend your knowledge by knowing more about the application. And by the way, I just want to mention it here that these courses that I'm going to do, what I want to do is, it's only 2 days, each graphic design, digital art, and photo retouch, but I'm going to focus on the specific things that you need for those fields. And that helps us to talk about these things only in 2 days and to be able to teach you everything that you need to know about those things. Okay? Because usually in normal courses we talk about everything that's in Photoshop, but we don't have time to go through exactly all the tools. We just quickly go through and show you what Photoshop can offer you. But in this case, we can focus on specific things and make sure that you know how to work with these. So non-destructive workflow. Do you know what is a non-destructive workflow in Photoshop? What are the things that you can use to work non-destructively? Masks, perfect. Vector shapes, yeah. Layers, exactly. So that's like the most important thing, to be able to work with layers, to be able to work separately with all the elements. And there's, if we talk about adjustments, what would you use? Yes, instead of using simply adjustments, work with adjustment layers. And what else can we say? There's one more quite important thing. Channels, yes, can help as well. It starts with smart object. Have you heard about smart objects? Smart objects are also very useful in Photoshop. So non-destructive workflow, why is it important? It's very, very important because in graphic design, you will always work in very tight deadlines. And usually, you have to be able to change whatever you add to your design very quickly. So there's no time of recreating something. So for example, as you've seen the examples I showed you, I could turn off everything separately, and I can easily play with them. I can change them very easily after I created them. So it's not flat. There's nothing flat in the designs I create. And again, whatever I hide from layers, I hide it with masks, which helps me to go back and forth whenever I need to. So if you work completely non-destructively, that will help you to make changes really easily, and that's essential because there's always changes. The client will always come back with changes, which is fine, but you will help yourself if you work non-destructively because that will save a lot of time. Okay, and that's one of the most important things. And interestingly enough, this is mainly true for graphic design, but also true to photo retouch, not as much as for graphic design. And for digital art, it's not really necessary. Even though I'm like, whenever I teach, I'm always talking about non-destructive ways of working. Even though if I talk about digital art, it's not that important. Because in digital art, we have a completely different approach. Okay, I will talk about that as well soon. So non-destructive workflow effects, like filters, layer styles, we talked about it, and blend modes, colors, the type tool, obviously, vector shapes, and the pen tool. Now, most users of Photoshop, they are afraid to use the pen tool because it's a bit strange to work with. Let me just show you one really exciting hidden feature in Photoshop which will help you if you want to improve your pen tool skills. With pen tool, basically, you can create vector shapes, so draw vector shapes, and believe me, again, this is very essential. You have to learn to use the pen tool because, like, today, at least I work like 4 hours out of my day with the pen tool. Okay, so it's really essential. You have to learn the pen tool. And what I use for the pen tool is the rubber band. And this is a really hidden feature. And you can find it, once you select the pen tool, you can find it under the additional options, and there's the rubber band. And it's not only for CS6, it was in previous versions as well, but most users won't know about it because it's just so hidden, and it's not a default option, so it's turned off. Let me show you how it works without having it turned on, and let me just set it to shape, choose another color. Okay, so when I draw with the pen tool, I can draw straight lines, and I already have a shape defined, or I can click and drag to define curves. Okay, but after this point, I won't know how the next curve will look like. I can only think that the next curve will somehow flow in this direction, but I will only see the curve once I click. So again, just show you this. So I move my cursor around and I don't see what's going to happen. Only when I click, let me go back. So only when I click, to continue, then I will see. Again, if I create a curve, I can only see it when I place it down the point. Again, only when I place it down. But what if I turn that option on, rubber band, okay? That will show the curve even before placing it down. So it's like a little help, a hint, which shows you how the curve will look like. And only when you are happy with the curve, then you can click to place it down or just adjust it further. So again, we can see how the rubber band helps us to work with the pen tool. Okay, so just another useful thing to know about. Okay, and I think we are done with the tools. The only last thing is that you will enjoy working in graphic design if you, and these are just things that I was thinking, so if you are still thinking which area interests you most, if you want to do work in graphic design, these are the things you should think about. If you enjoyed, or if you often find yourself spending an hour or two to choose the appropriate font for like an invitation card, so you just designed a very simple something for your family, and you can spend hours for looking for fonts, that's a good sign, okay? So that means that you will enjoy graphic design, because that's a very important thing in design. Or if you often stop and analyze posters while you are in the tube, that's again a good sign, and not just by reading the posters, but also the composition, see how the treatment works on it. Maybe even if you don't work really in Photoshop, if you're just interested to see how it works, and let's say this poster is much better than the one next to it, if you can see things like this, that's already again a really good sign, okay? You don't have to be professional and to be able to tell what's better in this than the other one. Even if you only have the interest to see that, that's also already a good sign. And for example, if you decide between two products based on the quality of the packaging design or the colors used on the design, again a good sign. Or if you just wander around on websites just because it looks cool, that's again a good sign. And things like this, things like this will help you, or it shows that you can be good in graphic design. Okay, next topic is digital art. I'm going to talk about this in roughly 20 minutes, then we will have a break, and after the break I'm going to talk about the photo retouch and globally about the whole creative industry. Digital art. First question, is digital art really art? That's a really interesting question. Here, obviously, you see a photograph combined with a painting, a digital painting. But about this question, what I found is quite interesting. So it has been argued that digital art is not real art since it is computer-generated. And there are infinite copies, and there is no original. However, it is now widely accepted as art since it involves creativity and the knowledge of art and design principles. With the creation of the computer and its use in art, we are now looking at the next major step in the evolution of art. So digital art, a couple of years ago, it was really like just a very niche market. But now it's one of the most important parts of the creative field, because for every film, every computer game, there has to be a concept art phase, which is the first and most important part, where digital artists get the brief from the producers and director, and they create the imagery that then later on will be used for the films. And all the 3D artists will use that as like the guidelines. So concept art is one of the main parts of digital art, as we are going to talk about it. But this is a massive industry now. And there are so many amazing artists working only in digital medium. So they are not painters, traditional painters in that sense, but they are still amazing artists. And let me just show you a couple of examples. If you're not familiar with digital art, let me show you this. I would say, personally, I would always think of digital art as traditional painting, so it's more like fine art of in Photoshop, that's like the fine art area. Let me show you a couple of examples here. So just starting from a concept art for a film, a recent film, John Carter. This is a painting done for the film. And if you saw the film, I'm sure you remember these characters. They look exactly like this in the film. And that's how amazing digital art is, that the digital painter sits down with a computer and a tablet, paints something like this, and that will end up in the final production, and all the 3D artists will use it for months, create the model, and animate it, then work it together with the actors, and that will end up in the final production. I would say that is the most creative area in the whole digital or graphic. Working with Photoshop, that's the most creative thing that you can do, I personally think. And there are so many amazing examples of like environment designs, again for games and films, to just come up with the colors, the perspective, the shapes and characters. Then let me show you another example, more futuristic composition, then another fantasy composition. So actually the computer games industry is bigger than the film industry now. So it is really, really big, and there's so many opportunities in this field. If you are good with drawing, obviously, here you definitely need to be good with drawing. If you are good with drawing and you like to work with Photoshop, combining these two things together, you will end up being a digital artist, which is great. And it's obviously very competitive, but there's so many projects going on, even here in London. It's interesting that there's not much schools for digital art. There's plenty of courses and schools for graphic design, but digital art is not really widely used in trainings, but there's many projects in this field. And let me show you other interesting examples as well, because it's quite intimidating to see these final paintings, but I can show you a couple of examples of how the whole art starts and the stages of these. Come on. So I have a couple of examples from a couple of paintings. You can see from start to finish. So this is how the painting starts. Let me just show you first the end result. Okay, that's the end result, and I can show you this side by side, and I can show you also the steps. So we always start with a simple sketch, but once again, this might look, maybe it looks complicated or it looks simple, but the main thing here is the perspective, to be able to understand the perspective. Is there anyone there who can tell me how many vanishing points are used in this perspective? One, you think, and it's somewhere there, yeah? And then what would you say for these lines? They are not going to that point. Or again, those. There's actually 5 vanishing points here. It's a 5 vanishing point perspective. I will again talk about this. I just wanted to point out this. Just like in graphic design, working with type, here working with perspective is one of the most important skills. To learn to work with perspective. As you can see in most designs, which I'm going to show, it's a very essential part. If you don't understand perspective, you can do amazing coloring, but your image won't work at the end still if you don't know the perspective. Here it's a really good example, and let me just show you the steps involved in this painting. So first stage, second stage, and then we go further, 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 and further, refining the image more and more. Okay, and then that's the end result. And let me show you another example. This is actually for a game called Diablo, for that concept art. You can see on the left there is a color, the chosen colors for the whole theme, but it always starts with a sketch. We have the sketch, then I just switch back and forth to see the changes. Then the artist adds the lighting. It can also be called ambient occlusion. Then there's the base color chosen. Then there's additional colors, you can see, added. And then lights and more detailed colors. And then the final result, the detailing, and adding again lights. After perspective, what would you say is the most, after seeing this, what would you say is the most important thing or skill, essential skill to have for digital art? Light, exactly. Light is really important because you have to create from scratch, from a blank paper, you have to create or come up with something which looks like 3-dimensional. And to be able to do that, most important thing is light. Okay? Without light, we won't see things in 3 dimensions. There's no, like, the shadows and light will help us to see the shape and form in something. So that's why it's really important to learn that. Let me show you another example. This is actually a video. And you can see the whole process. It's a very fast version of the painting process. You can see that from a rough composition, the artist will spend a lot of time refining all these details, going round and round the whole design, and just adding more and more details until she gets to the final result, which is this. And another really important thing is composition, because, as you can see from the start, the composition stays the same. It's only the colors and details that will change. If your composition is not right from the beginning, it won't end up as a good painting at the end. It has to be good in the beginning. So once again, composition is already there. Okay? I can already see the final painting in this, and it will work because the composition is good. It's placed on the canvas well, and after that point, it's only a matter of time for the artist to add all the details. There's a bit of change here in the composition, actually, but not that much. And then detailing, colors, base colors, and then comes the light part. You can see the lighting added to the painting. More details and lights, more colors, more details again. I just switch back and forth. And then final details. Okay, so that's another example. Let me go through quickly this one as well. Initial sketch, then a refined sketch, base colors, added details, and this is how we get to the final stage. Okay. Oh no, actually, sorry, that was one more step. Changes in colors. And let me show you a different type of illustration. This is a completely different style, but still it's also concept art, or it's more illustration, I would call. Again, from the initial sketches, using the base colors, then clearing up the line work. So using, as you can see in this case, it's only just getting rid of the black outline and using the same colors, the neighboring colors on the outlines, and then adding light. First shadows. You can see how the shadows are added. Then add highlights. Okay, so once shadows, next highlights, and then detailing. But again, these are the steps used for and getting to the final result. So let me just jump back quickly to the presentation. And now that we saw these examples of digital art, I would like to talk quickly about the main areas in digital art. So there's concept art, which is a really big industry, and concept artists can design characters, vehicles, environments, weapons, architecture, plans, so on and so forth. Good example is, for instance, Avatar. For Avatar, they had to design a whole new planet. And if you saw the film, I'm sure you saw that there were so many interactions between the creatures, the environment, the plants. Everything was so well thought out. It's because they spent almost 2 years only in the concept art stage. So 2 years just to come up with these amazing paintings. And these artists are actually, they know a lot about biology just to be able to create new monsters and creatures. So they study biology and lots of other additional things to be able to come up with like creature designs. For concept art, I would like to just jump to the next slide because I don't really have time to talk about all these areas. Just an example of when a composition or a digital art won't work and when it gets better. So this was my first approach on a character design, and then I spent like 2 weeks without looking at the image, and when I went back I completely redesigned it because I just wasn't happy with it, and you can see why. It's just the whole pose is not working well. It's the proportion of the body is not right, and also the colors are all around the place. So it had to be fixed up, and there's always lots of things that you can improve once you create a design, and then go back and with a fresh eye look at your design, and you can always create better. I just wanted to quickly point that out. So good hand drawing skills are essential in this case. Working with light and color, as I said, that's the rendering part. You remember, like, first creating the composition, hand drawing part, and then the rendering part is when we add colors and light. Then anatomy is obviously quite important in this case, because you have to work, you have to usually come up with poses without using a reference or a model. So you have to know about the anatomy for human and even animals, and drawing in perspectives. That's how perspective works. These lines will meet somewhere there. That's called the vanishing point. Okay, so every line will lead to that point. This is not just in digital art, it's in real life as well. This is how it works. But in art, we define it by using one or several vanishing points. This is when we use one vanishing point. All lines will end up there in that point, all parallel lines. Then when we have two vanishing points, we will have a bit more interesting shapes. But there we can have even more vanishing points. What would you say? I can help you with roughly. There's three vanishing points in this case. One is somewhere here. The other one is somewhere there. Where would you place the third one? Down, yeah. Somewhere here. If you look at these lines, they will all lead up to somewhere there. Okay, so three vanishing points in this case. It's used a lot in architecture. And then the example, very similar to the one we saw, the 5-point perspective. Okay, when we have like a fisheye view, fisheye lens view of the cityscape. That's 5 points. Okay, and let's just look at the examples again. Even if I show you an example like a jungle, where you would think, okay, perspective is great if we have architecture or very geometric shapes, then we really need the perspective. But even in this case, where can you see the perspective used in this case? Top right. Mainly, what helps you to see the depth, because that's what the artist wanted to show here, the depth, to make you feel like, wow, that's really like deep down there. Even though it's a flat image, we still feel the depth in it. And what helps us to see that is these little lines, like water drops. These are the lines which help us to see it draws us in the picture, and that shows really well the perspective. And the vanishing point would be somewhere there. Okay, so one of the vanishing points, the other one will be there. So again, you can see that in most cases, perspective is a really essential thing to know about. Okay, let me go back. And additional skills, again, drawing from life. If you study and drawing from life, that's always useful. And if you have traditional painting background, that's great, because you will know more about colors as well and how to mix colors together. But what I would say is even more important than the first two is industrial product design experience. It's really interesting. I studied industrial product design, and I thought it won't be useful in like art at all. But for concept art, this is the most useful additional skill, because you have to create new things. You have to. It's almost like engineering something. You have to make it work. Even though it will work only in a film or a computer game, it still has to be believable that it will work. Even though it's just an animal, it has to work, because it will have to move and then do things. Okay, so it's always designing something, engineering something. 3D modeling and sculpting is again useful additional skill. Mainly use areas in Photoshop. Obviously, brush tool and everything concerning brushes. The rotate view tool is quite handy. color picker, mixer brush, and eraser. It's quite simple. As I said, it's roughly like 10% of Photoshop, which you will use for digital art. And you will enjoy it, digital art, if, and that's the last thing before the break, if you watch these fantasy and sci-fi films with always thinking that, wow, it must have been an amazing concept art before this came up. So you think and you try to look for these concept arts on the internet. If you are interested in that, that helps you, will definitely help you in digital art field. If you were drawing silly characters on your table or on books in your books in school, that's also a good sign. And it probably helps you to be a good digital artist in the future. Once again, don't have to be concerned in the first time if you want to do digital art about your hand drawing ability, because it's something that you can really improve, and you can. It's just like anything else, just like working Photoshop, you can learn to draw even with a tablet. It's not that complicated. There's steps that you need to follow, and it's all about practice. If you feel motivated and inspired by these images and you want to do stuff like that, the only thing you need is time and patience. And you have to be patient and practice, and then you will end up be able to do digital art.